In this podcast, we are going to be talking about suicide. So please make the best choice for yourself in terms of whether or not you want to listen right now. Taking care of yourself is so important. And if you are in crisis or having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. The number is 988. Welcome to Therapy, Tech, and Takeout, where humor meets healing with bite-sized chunks of wisdom and techie tips. I'm Toni Jackie. I'm a therapist, recovering overthinker, entrepreneur, and ethics nerd.
And I'm Jackie Toll, an entrepreneur, unapologetic spreadsheet addict, and low-rent stand-up comedian. So, hey, Toni, how you doing? What you vibing on this week?
I am doing great. Thanks for asking. What am I vibing on this week? Well, I have to tell you, I was just thinking about this weekend, my pizza addiction. And we found like the perfect pizza. And I've been waiting. I didn't tell you about this because it's been a few months now because I was worried I was going to get sick of it. You know how you kind of eat something?
You can overdo it.
So first of all, let me preface this with I'm also an used to be a vegan. I can't call myself a vegan anymore because we went to Italy a couple of years ago and I had to eat cheese. So the vegan thing went out the window. I still don't eat any meat. So I guess I'm really a vegetarian. But a few months ago, we started ordering, I think it's like the San Marzano 4-cheese pizza. And it was so good, like really thin, really crispy. Because we got really sick of the last pizza we were ordering forever. And we've been eating this one like once a week for months now. And it's just luscious and delicious and exciting. And I wait for Friday nights, I think, just so I can order that pizza. So I'm really thinking about the pizza. Friday, we get to order.
Friday.
Really excited. Pizza day.
You're almost there, Toni. You can make it.
I know. Just a few more days.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How about you? What's happening for you this week?
So excited. This year, I'm going to a couple Halloween parties. I haven't been to a Halloween party in, I can't remember how long. And then weirdly enough, this year I got invited to 2. So I have put my costume together. The first one it's a crossover between Halloween and Christmas. So I'm going to be Elf Elvira. Like Elvira's half sister who's half elf. And then the other one is just whatever theme or whatever. So I'm going to reuse the costume. So yeah, I've been just getting ready and getting excited and wondering how it's going to be. Because I haven't really I've done like parties with my kids where they dressed up and stuff. But I don't think I've ever really been to a outside of the office adults in costumes type thing. So I'm excited.
It's been years and years since I've gone to an adult Halloween party. I don't even know how many years it's been. That sounds like so much fun. I love the creativity of like putting the elf and the Elvira together. That's fun. I'm going to live vicariously through you. So tell me all about the parties. Yeah.
100%. I'll share pictures.
Really cool.
The first one I'm going to with my friend who I went to Vegas with and her company. And I think it's like one of like their like investors or whatever who's throwing it, but they're all going as like the haunted Nutcracker suite, and so everybody's dressing up as like a different character from the Nutcracker, but like gory and like dark, and so like it should be cool. There should be awesome pictures. I'm excited to share.
I love that. That sounds like so much fun.
Well, fantastic. I'm excited to jump into our topic today.
Yeah. What are we talking about
just because it's so important. So today we're going to talk about the parental controls that ChatGPT has put in, what they are, what they do and don't do. And then it also talks some more around, what can we do and how can we like maybe do a better job or do like the human job of keeping our kids safe around these GPTs, because I think it's, on a very regular basis, we see tragic news about things that are happening to kids because of their interactions with large language models and generative AI tools and things like that.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. That's been in the news. It's been front of mind. It's a topic that is, it's about safety. So I think it's really, really important. There are parents who are suing, right? Open
oh yeah.
AI, because I guess we'll talk a little bit about what the situation is right now, right? Which is that there are kids and adults who are going to ChatGPT to have relationships and to learn things and to talk about feelings. And in some cases, talking about self harm. And because ChatGPT and these models really try to validate, and there's some positive thoughts about that, like they try to validate what's going on for people. But someone who's suicidal really needs special care. The people who are going to ChatGPT are getting information that is not steering them away from harming themselves or steering them toward help, but rather um, encouraging self-harm. So that is tremendously scary. There are at-risk populations that are out there who have access to this and are unaware of the danger. So parents pushed to have some parental controls, which I think happened pretty quickly.
It did. I think that's one area where OpenAI, at least in acknowledging that there was a problem, even with the pending lawsuit and doing something to address the problem. And we'll talk about what we think about what they're doing to address the problem, but doing something at least seems like a more unique approach than what you typically see, which is like avoid, ignore,
Sweep it under the
don't
rug.
admit guilt or liability or anything like that. I think there's, and again, I'm not saying they're going far enough or doing everything right, but it does have at least a different type of approach, which I think is really important because this tool is so ubiquitous, and
Mhm.
these tools, the generative AI stuff, and regulators, especially here in the US and I'm sure in, many, many other places, aren't staying on top of this, right? Like the laws aren't keeping up with the things that are needed to keep kids safe and keep parents informed.
Technology is moving so quickly that, a little too quickly, so much so that we're not thinking about the safety piece and how to do that first, right? So the brain is moving, the technology is moving. What are all the wonderful things we can do? But there's not a lot of pause to let's make sure ethically we're doing the right thing as we're creating, the monster or the thing.
Right, yeah.
That could turn into a monster, really, if we're not thinking about the ethical implications of what it is we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, for some families it has, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's caused a lot of harm. I know of 2 cases at least. There may be more. The last time I read where teenagers have actually attempted and completed suicide
yeah,
because of the advice that they got.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where OpenAI is trying to put, at least some level of stopgap in.
Yeah, I appreciated what you said before, Jackie, that, there are a lot of questions that would not quickly take ownership of the problem and do anything to rectify it, but really maybe try to talk around it or defend themselves or blame somebody else or something else. And I really feel like they didn't do that. So I do want to give them props for saying, yeah, we're recognizing right now that this is an issue, and maybe they haven't come up with the most perfect solution, but at least there's an attempt to take accountability and ownership of that and then try to find a solution for it. So I appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Well, let's talk about what they're actually doing, right?
Sounds good.
At least currently. So right now, like let's say, I have a teen, like both the teen and I have to opt in to like connect our accounts. And then if ChatGPT detects things around self-harm and suicidal ideations, they will have it reviewed by human monitors. And then if those human monitors agree that this is something the parent should be notified of, they notify the parent.
Via email, I think. Is
I
that
think
right?
via a bunch of different like you can get an alert from ChatGPT, you
Mm-hmm.
can get a text, and you can get a phone call. And then an article I read, it had some information that said that it would also notify authorities if they weren't able to confirm that a parent had been or a guardian had been reached, but it was unclear how that was actually going to be rolled out or implemented, or where that was. That's a question mark still, but yeah, at least multi-channel, try to let the parent know. But again, their goal is to have that within an hour of the message getting sent. That's like not a short period of time, right? Like for a kid in crisis. But I also understand that like there is that human mediation interaction that does obviously will require time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
how do you think kids would feel though if, like, let's say they've like bonded with their AI and are having these conversations, and then their parent gets notified? Like, do you think that they'd read that as a betrayal?
So is it okay if we back up a little bit? Because the time thing, I just wanted to
Yeah,
talk about that first, because
for sure.
the thought did come to mind that this actually can be useful, even though there's an hour's time. Think about the kids who are feeling that way, thinking that, don't have anyone to tell. And that hour time goes by and no one's notified.
Yeah.
So I just really want to add that there is an opportunity here that can create more safety, because the alternative is there's nobody there monitoring. We would like it to happen faster, but I think that there's also a uniqueness about that makes me want to say, yeah, you know what? There are kids who are not going to get caught. There's actually an opportunity that it could serve as a safety net. I don't
Hmm.
know what that looks like, but when you said that hour time, it just made me think about the kids who are going to get completely missed because there's nobody there who's going to
Right.
tell their parents or check on them.
For sure.
So there's that. I just wanted to share that. So to your question about how kids might feel about the chat bot ratting them out,
Yeah.
was that your question? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I feel like obviously they had to accept it in and then not do the very simple things you could do to get around it. But so on some level, but you would think after time you kind of forget, right? Like, I know I had those little devices in my kids' cars when they were young and learning to drive, so I could see where they were and make sure, like,
Yeah.
they weren't
Were they
speeding or
driving
any of
too
these
fast?
things.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
nanny sort of things, but eventually, like, they forgot about them, and like, I forgot about them and stuff too. But I think, and so like you have something, perhaps they forget about it, and then they say something and it gets flagged. Yeah, like
Yeah.
how would they feel about that? I mean, I would feel betrayed, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess from a therapist point of view, right, on intake, when I first meet a new client, I talk about the limits of confidentiality. And I say right up front, there is, if you talk about suicidality, homicidality, harm to, someone else or a population that's at risk, someone with a developmental disability or an elderly person. That means that I would have to break confidentiality to get help for you or to get help for the other person. Now, we're not breaking confidentiality, telling them everything about the person's therapy sessions, but we're breaking confidentiality to get help. And I always say, this is so that I can help you. I only say that once. I say it at the beginning. I don't say it at every single session. But I feel like the seed is planted, and they know that my role is there as someone who's going to help them and keep them safe. And
Yeah.
they know that. And I've had to invoke that privilege on occasions. And I don't think that my relationship with those clients were any worse for the wear. I think that it probably strengthened those relationships because I showed my commitment to them and my care for them, that I was taking care of them. Now, in terms of the chat GPT, if it has that same warning or I don't know, I guess I'll use the word warning for lack of a better word at the beginning
Right.
of
Disclosure. Yeah.
disclosure. Yeah, thank you very much. At the beginning, when they sign up and they're linking their accounts, I don't think you need anything more than that. If a teenager knows that is an option and a possibility, then they're signing off on that, and they're agreeing to that. I don't think it now the whole thing about emotional trust, it's like, I guess the first question is, can you have emotional trust, Jackie, with a chatbot? Does that even exist?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know that you can have an authentic emotional trust, but I think you could have the appearance of emotional trust, right? Or like the feel like a one-way sort of emotional trust, which isn't
Like,
really, like, because you really do need two sides, I think, right? Like to have a true
yeah,
trust. And so I don't think you can really have that with AI, but I think it can mimic the sensation of it for people.
yeah,
Which is
yeah,
how I think people are in the situation where they have relationships with AI, and they are like from friendships to romantic to whatever, right? Because it's mimicking that,
yeah.
and
There's
it's
a
designed to in
sense.
some way,
Yeah, there's a sense that there's a mutuality, but there's not. It's
right?
one-sided.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one-sided. So I think that I'm really like paralleling, and I don't really like to do that, like a therapy situation with this, like a therapist and client and the chatbot and client, paralleling them in terms of like, you're going to break trust for the sake of safety, and that's okay,
Hmm.
because we kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
And if we don't have to frame it as breaking trust, but rather as getting you help because you need help. In
Right.
fact, we want to be trustworthy people by putting ourselves in the position where we're going to help somebody get help.
Yeah.
Even if it's, inconvenient, or, we're not sure,
Awkward.
we're
Yeah.
awkward, we're putting ourselves out there in a way where, yeah, we might get blamed, or we might be making the wrong call, but I'd rather be wrong in getting someone help when they don't need it than the reverse, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, I think we've alluded to it, but one, these safeguards are like woefully insufficient, right? I mean, there's something there, but like, I mean, they're so easy to get around. I'm not going to say how to do it because
Yeah.
it takes like 2 seconds to figure that out, right? But and also glitchy too. Like like I read in the article that I had that when parents said to deactivate image generation and that type of thing, it didn't always stick. So it's a work in progress. I think having them and having to have that conversation of, hey, we need to link up, is an opportunity for parents to maybe be more open the door to sort of communication about how our kids are using AI. What are you using? What do you use it for? Or what types of things do you use it for? Instead of saying like, no, you can't use it, or yes, you can, or these types of conversations are even bad. Like, like do you confide in it? Do you find it easier to talk to AI about certain things than
Mm-hmm.
me? Like that. There's a lot of like curious questions you could have, I think, to kind of
Yeah.
get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think you raised the positive of doing it in this way, where parents are linking their accounts, because you have to have a conversation with your
Yeah.
kid about this. And if you're willing to step into the space to ask your kid to link, then you probably have the kind of relationship with them where you can talk to them about these kinds of things. Hey, what do you use AI for? And how are you feeling? And those kids who will link their account probably do feel more comfortable talking to their parents about feelings, and might be sharing those things, because you have to be open enough to share that you're using it,
Right.
and that you're open to it monitoring or helping you if you need help. So I think it opens up the conversation, and that can be a good thing too,
For
because
sure.
then parents have to talk to their kids about it.
Absolutely.
But the fact that there are workarounds, the fact that not every parent is going to link this with their kids, the fact that not every parent even knows that their kids are using AI, may
Sure.
have their head in the sand. I hate to use that term, but kind of like, just like really not aware of what's happening with their kids online. They're not going to have access to be able to link their accounts. They're not going to even be thinking about that. A lot of parents are like, not my kid. You
Right.
know, my kid's not feeling depressed. My kids would never hurt themselves. My kid is not using AI for anything but homework, and that's it. So that, I think there could be that denial. I mean, I don't know about you, but I had, a certain amount of that when my kids were young, and they were starting to go on computers and phones. And I chalk that up to kind of being ignorant because we were like kind of, that was just starting. It's not where it is right now.
Yeah.
My kids were that very early generation. In fact, they say to me all the time, like, thank goodness they didn't have AI and they didn't have some of these tools and they didn't really have phones when they were really young. They really did focus on schoolwork and they had to do it themselves because they kind of know themselves and they're like, I would have
Right.
totally,
Yeah.
done all
I
that.
wouldn't be able to add.
Right. And I think I was naive because I didn't realize the power and the pull and where my kids could even find those things. Like I didn't even think
Yeah.
about it. I remember by the time I found out, like, oh, parental controls, like that's something I should have. That's something I should do. I should be monitoring my kids. They were already kind of like a little bit older already. How about you? What do you think about?
Yeah, I think that is I think it's really at the place where parents need to just be having a lot more of these inquisitive conversations about what their kids are doing. Cause think about for how many generations, right? Like when you think about the bad things that you did or that your parents did, it was kind of, or like
Oh,
the places, the pitfalls, right? They were all kind of the same.
yeah.
Like you get
Yeah.
caught in with a wrong crowd, or you get
Mm-hmm.
caught up on that. And then you bring in the internet era and the social media era, and they're all of a sudden very different, and our kids are behaving very different than they
Yeah.
have in generations.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to navigate, and I'm not envious of the parents that are
Yeah.
at the at the beginning of it now, for sure. It's a lot, but
So,
I think that at least people recognizing that it's something that needs to be controlled. I think companies taking a stand again. OpenAI, like this is one. There's tons of other platforms. There are tons of other platforms where kids are getting harmed in the exact same way
hmm
because of the same underlying sort of technology and stuff. So I think we need to kind of, on two fronts, like one, like as parents and, as adults in society, talk about what needs to be put in place to help mitigate these risks and require companies who are making a ton of money, right? Like
right.
to implement things to keep our kids safe. And then I also think, as parents, we need to, open up those lines of communication and realize that like we're not going to understand like our kids' perspective on these things necessarily, because like we have to get it from them. We have to have that conversation and be
Yeah.
curious with them about it.
Yeah. And I don't think, just to go a step further, I don't think it's only about being curious about how kids are interacting with technology, but really be curious, non-judgmental, and open about what kids' lives are like, what their
Yeah.
experience is, and to take away some of the shame, because that's what really this kind of comes down to. Why are people going to these, chatbots? There's shame in asking some questions. They don't want to look stupid. They don't want people to know how they really
Yeah.
feel. Maybe they have, a kink or a fetish, and they don't really want to share that with
Right.
anyone because of, feeling that judgment and then feeling shame about that. If we started there and could make it easy, even for grown-ups to talk to each other, never mind like talking to our kids or having our kids talk to us. Grown-ups can't even do this.
Yeah.
Um, and if we can really get people to talk about how they feel in a non-judgmental way, then we really could have open conversations about that, and that everything else would follow. So, it's like we can mitigate the risks and take care of that thing, the technology piece, but without the basic communication and understanding and openness and care that comes with relationships. Even if we do that thing, we're not really moving, we're like not really moving forward and making any big changes, kind of. It is kind of a little bit like putting a Band-Aid on. Are you getting kind of what I'm
That's such a good
saying?
point. Yeah, no, I think that's a really important point. And I think the idea of that's not necessarily, at least culturally, and how I was brought up, right? Like shame and like those were encouraged things, and I
Shame was
think
an encouraged
really,
thing.
yeah, definitely. Lots of Catholic shame in my life, but I think that, and then learning to overcome that and stuff is sort of a generational thing we're doing too, right? Then that acceptance and that safety and those safe spaces, and to let people know, that they are safe and they can communicate and be authentic and not judged and stuff is really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it is one of the underpinnings. The lack of that is one of like the underpinnings of, so many things we could improve on for sure.
So many things. Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah. So like my takeaway today, Jackie, is really about one, I didn't expect myself to say I want to give props to, ChatGPT, OpenAI, and taking ownership. So I kind of surprised myself. I think that was like a really important takeaway for us today. And we really came to this part of this conversation to think about the humanness and the technology, and that like, even though we could mitigate risks around the technology, we really can't, get rid of our responsibility to ourselves and to our children to create spaces where people can talk in a non-judgmental way, honestly, and trying to take some of that shame away. Because even if we, it's technology, we still have the questions, those unanswered questions about what are people thinking and feeling, and then where are they going to go? If they're not going to go to ChatGPT, they're going to go somewhere else. We could fix the
Right.
technology stuff, and then kids will say, okay, I can't go there, but then they'll find
I'll go
somewhere
to this
else
other
to
thing.
go. Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
go to
of
this other
course.
thing.
Yeah.
So really great talking to you today. I love this topic.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great takeaway, Toni. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and excited to talk to you all next week when we are going to talk about Brene Brown's perspective on all of this. So she's one of my favorites. That should be really fun.
Love that.
Have a great week, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.